Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a Criterion Collection recommendation video. These are movies I watched for the first time in the Criterion Collection that really left an impact on me. Now the reason I'm doing this video now is because I believe it's this Friday, June 27th, Barnes & Noble is going to start their 50% off Criterion Collection sale, and that sale will last from June 27th to late July, so you pretty much have a whole month to, get as many movies as you want at half price. These Barnes & Noble Criterion Collection sales are really big deals because this is the moment where you can jump in and buy these movies that are otherwise really expensive throughout the rest of the year. With these Criterion sales, they do one in July, and then they do one in November. And then every once in a while they'll have a random day where they'll do just a one-day 24-hour flash sale. I started getting into the Criterion a few years ago when I wanted to start exploring more movies that are out there. Before, I was also unaware that Barnes & Noble had these 50% off sales, so it was always really hard for me to get these movies because of how expensive they were. But because of these sales, I was able to pick up a lot from the past couple years, and I'm really happy with most of all the ones that I've picked up. I don't think I've seen any movie that I've bought during a Criterion sale that has been bad. If you don't know what Criterion Collection is, Criterion is a boutique label that basically preserves movies that are in a way impactful to cinema. So you get all kinds of movies, tons of foreign ones too, so you'll get movies from like France and Japan. It's just such a wide selection. But these movies are always like really, really good. First, I'll start off with one of my favorites that I've ever gotten during a Criterion sale, and that movie is Michael Mann's Thief. This movie stars James Caan, and it's just a super good heist film. Now, the director for this also directed Heat, which starred Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. So if you're into that movie and based on that you understand how good he is at doing these kinds of movies, then I would highly recommend this one. This movie is basically about a guy who is no longer a criminal, no longer does heists anymore, but he has an opportunity to do one last job. Now for me, this is possibly the best heist movie that I've ever seen. I'm a really big fan of Ocean's 11 too, so that's up there, but I think for sure this one is number one for me. James Caan is also a huge part of this. He adds so much. He did so good in this movie. This is for sure my favorite James Caan movie that I've seen. He was great in The Godfather and Misery and some other films of his that I've seen. But this one is just for sure my favorite one of him. The ending to this movie is so cool. I mean, without spoiling anything, this movie has an ending that's straight out of a John Wick movie. But for sure, pick up Thief if you have not seen it. It's a great first time watch. It won't disappoint you. I know they just released this on 4K. I currently have the Blu-ray. My plan is to get the 4K and then I'm gonna sell this to make my money back and pay for that 4K, because this is a movie I definitely want in 4K. This is just so good. The next movie I would highly recommend is Moonrise Kingdom. This is a film by Wes Anderson, and it's, in my opinion, the best jumping on point for Wes Anderson. I've seen almost all Wes Anderson films. I'm a really big fan of his. I love his style and his uniqueness that he puts into his movies. Of all the ones I've seen, I have to say this one is my favorite. What this movie is, it's about this small island community, and it's about this boy who lives on one side of the island and then a girl that lives on the other side, and they start sending each other letters. Through the letters, they start to grow a friendship, and they decide that they're going to both run away from their homes, and they're going to meet in the middle of the island, and they're going to live together on their own. So one night, they both sneak away from their families and their part of the island, and they both meet up in the middle and try to survive on their own. Meanwhile, the parents of both sides of the island are panicking and trying to find them. This is just a really good, wholesome movie. It's just really, it's a great Wes Anderson film. It's a great film in general. It's a 5 out of 5. This movie stars Bruce Willis, Edward Norton. It's got Bill Murray in it too. A lot of the usual Wes Anderson actors. So if you're looking to get into Criterion or into Wes Anderson, or both at the same time, this is the perfect one to pick up. And speaking of good jumping on points for directors, I also recommend Blue Velvet. This is a film by David Lynch, and this is, in my opinion, his best movie for you to jump on with. I always would recommend, after seeing Twin Peaks, I would say start with Twin Peaks and then explore his films. But if you're not looking to start a show, then I would highly recommend starting off with Blue Velvet. I just feel like it's a very more grounded story compared to his other films. A lot of his other films are very, very out there, very confusing, and a normal audience viewer may not be into those kind of movies. But Blue Velvet is one of his where you don't really have to be someone like me who's into that kind of stuff and wants to see directors that push the boundaries. Not everybody's into that, so if you're not, then I would highly recommend Blue Velvet. Maybe you'll like it and you'll want to explore more of his stuff. But this movie is basically about a guy played by Kyle MacLachlan who finds a ear in a field, and he takes it to a police department, and the police are kind of slow with it and they're not really doing much about it, so he starts to investigate it on his own. That's when he meets the daughter, the police chief, played by Laura Dern, and they start to kind of explore together what this ear means and where it came from and what happened. So they're kind of doing their own little detective work on the side while the police are also doing their own. This is a really great film. I would highly recommend this, especially if you're trying to get into David Lynch. The next few movies I'm about to recommend are all foreign films. I have a bunch of them on this list of mine because I just love all of these, but also I feel it's important for me to talk about them because most people may not be aware of them. Not everybody explores foreign films, so I just want to put them out there because I really think if you explore these, you're going to really like them. First off, one of my favorite foreign films I've ever seen, Eyes Without a Face. This is a French foreign film that came out in 1960, and it's basically about this girl who got a deformed face, and her father is he's like a surgeon, like a doctor or something like that, and he's trying to find a way where he can take a face from another girl and apply it to his daughter so that she can once again have a face. So for the moment, she has like this white mask that she wears all the time to cover her disformed face, and that's where the title comes into place, Eyes Without a Face, because you can see her eyes but her face is covered by a mask. This movie is just so ahead of its time. This movie came out in 1960, and during that time period, you just didn't see very many movies pushing boundaries like this. This is a movie I believe every horror fan should check out. Now, while I do recommend this on the Criterion, I would also recommend checking out the 4K that was put out by Umbrella Entertainment. That 4K transfer was really great. Not that this wasn't. This one is honestly just as good. So if you're looking to get this movie, just get it on the Blu-ray if you want. But if you love this movie after you watch it like I do, then you may want to look into getting the 4K set because it's a really cool collector's piece. But anyways, Eyes Without a Face, for sure, one of my favorite foreign films that I've ever watched. Next, I have a Korean film from Bong Joon-ho called Memories of Murder. This is one of the best detective movies that has ever been made. This movie is based on a true story about the first serial killer in Korea. It's very similar to Zodiac, where, you know, the killer has never been caught, so the movie kind of plays with that, where, you know, anybody could be the suspect. This movie ends with possibly one of the greatest endings of all time. It's an ending that'll send chills down your spine. If you haven't seen Memories of Murder and you're into detective, murder mystery kind of stuff, or even just movies based on true events, then I highly recommend Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder. And continuing down the path of detective movies, this is a Japanese film called Cure. Now this movie takes the detective murder mystery concept or genre, and it adds a little supernatural spin to it. Now what this one is basically there's a bunch of murders happening, and the detective is trying to put them together and figure out what's going on, but he's noticing that it's a similar kind of murder that's happening with each victim, and each suspect that commits the murder is somewhat under the influence. All these suspects have like an X or a mark that's on them, and they don't know why they committed the murder. It's kind of like a Norman Bates situation, I would say, where they kind of just like black out and then, oh, they murdered somebody, but they just can't put together what the reason is for. So the detective is looking at all these different murders that are all very similar, but all have a different suspect, yet none of them know why they did it. It's a very interesting film, and I highly recommend it. Next, I have another French film called The Vanishing. This movie is one of the darkest movies that I've ever seen. Now, this one, of all the movies I've shown, isn't a perfect movie, but I just think based on the last hour of this movie alone, this is something that you need to watch. Now, what this is a couple goes to a gas station, and while the wife goes in to use the restroom, she ends up getting kidnapped while the husband's out in his car. After a while of him sitting there waiting as she never comes back out, he starts to panic. He goes in and she's gone. And there's no trace of her. He has no clue what happens. And then we jump forward. I'm not sure, I can't remember how much time passes, but I'm pretty sure it's a year to 3 years, 1 to 3 years, somewhere around there. But anyways, that time passes, and he's moved on. He's got a new girlfriend, but he still, sort of wants to find her, even though he's kind of accepted that she may be gone forever. Suddenly, he starts to get these notes from the guy that kidnapped her, and he's basically, you get to see two different perspectives in this movie, which is another thing I really like about this. You follow the husband of the wife that was kidnapped, and then you also see the perspective of the kidnapper, and you get to see his life, and he lives like a very normal life. Like, you would never expect that this dude would do something like this. But from his perspective, you start to see him stalk the husband, and it's just a very creepy, very eerie kind of film, seeing that side of it. And it all leads to the big ending, and the ending is just one of the darkest things I've ever seen. It's a movie where once the credits roll, you just sit there in silence, because it's like, wow, that was very dark. This is a movie I feel like everybody should try, because it leaves you with an impact, and it's one that you will not forget. The final movie I have on my Criterion recommendation list as of June 2025 is Pan's Labyrinth. This is a film by Guillermo del Toro, and it's a fantastic film. This is a movie that takes place in Spain 5 years after the Spanish Civil War, and it's a great mix of like real life monsters and then a child's make-believe world monsters. It follows this young girl who's able to go to like this fairy tale world where there's monsters and things like that, but it's very reminiscent of the real world and the people that surround her. If you watch, you can see how certain monsters in her fantasy world are symbolic to the people around her in her real world. This is just a really great movie and commentary on war and, human beings and how we can be real monsters as adults. And it also shows the innocence of children and how adults around them can seem like monsters to them. This is for sure a 5 out of 5 film. This is in my top 3 foreign films of all time. This was actually one of the very first foreign films that I ever watched. So this really helped me get into it and expand my interest in foreign films. And those are all the recommendations I have for this video. There's so many. I probably had too many just for this video, but Criterion has so many great movies. I'll try to mix it up whenever they do another sale in November. Maybe I'll make another one and try to include different titles that time. Maybe keep some that I listed here today, but not repeat the same movies every time. Because honestly, I could just recommend their entire catalog. I mean, they just have so many great movies. And no, not every Criterion Collection film is a movie that nobody's ever heard of. They also release some more mainstream ones. I mean, they've released Breakfast Club, Raging Bull, Princess Bride, which all of those I also highly recommend. They all have great transfers, whether it's the Blu-ray transfer, the 4K. They all just look fantastic because Criterion just takes such good care of these films, and they want to make sure that it's presented in the best way possible. So yeah, those are movies I recommend getting in the July Criterion sale. Let me know in the comments which films you want to pick up, or if there's any that I didn't list that you may recommend to me. I'm always looking for new films to try out. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about some of these movies that I recommend. and I hope to see you in the next video.